Being Jewish during the time of the Nazi regime was dangerous, but even more so when they were invading your home country of Poland and your home city of Warsaw, where you currently live. Vladislav Filtzman is the main character in the book The Pianist, as depicted here. He is a Jewish musician in the time of the Nazi regime, and here is a picture of him in his older age. The Pianist is actually Vladislav's personal journal, from before the siege began all the way up until the recapturing of the city. Throughout Vladislav's survival in the Warsaw city limits, there have been many people and events that have changed his perspective. As conflicts emerge and progress, perspectives change. Connecting the book The Pianist with this theme here, as conflicts emerge and progress, perspectives change, is very evident within the book. It happens multiple times within the book's pages. Vladislav starts out being kind of a happy-go-lucky pianist who plays in the local cafes, who's pretty optimistic about the war that is to come. But as he starts seeing the elements of war and what unfolds for him and his people, his perspective drastically changes. He states, "I came home in a deep depression." Spiltzman 40. From now on in the book, that is a very common statement, whether he's saying it out loud or in his head. Because of the war, Vladislav's perspective changes. He starts to see no point in life and contemplates suicide as he sees his people brutalized and killed. So this theme is very much a large part of The Pianist, and it connects very much with the book itself. The first character that we will be looking at that changes Vladislav's perspective is Jehuda Ziskin. Vladislav states, Jehuda was a determined optimist. However bad the radio news was, he could always put a good interpretation on it. Jehuda is an incorrigible optimist. And because of this, and because of how incorrigible he is, Vladislav can't compete with him, really, and he can't outweigh all the good news he brings. And because of this, Jehuda gives Vladislav that safety blanket that the war will end, that there's always a positive out of any negative. And this is Vladislav's perspective all the way up into Jehuda's death. The next character, or characters rather, we'll be looking at is the Filtzman family. The Filtzman family consists of Vladislav's mother, father, and his 3 other siblings who will be on the screen right now. His siblings are Helena, Regina, and Henrik, and this is a picture of them from 1914. And here is a younger Vladislav. He was the oldest sibling. Vladislav states, I did not have myself vaccinated. I couldn't have. I couldn't have afforded more than just a single dose of serum. Just enough for myself and not the rest of the family, and I did not want that. Sviltsman, 18. Vladislav's family teaches him to be a selfless person and always put others before himself. And this transfers to his daily life. But after he loses his family, his perspective of selflessness is lost, and it evolves into a new one of loneliness, and he feels like he can't live without them. So really his family both, they start and result in a perspective. They start with one that's selfless, and they result in a lonely, negative one. Vladislav goes from caring to others to seeing no point in life, and seeing no point in his existence, and wondering why he was alive. These are both two major perspectives he has throughout the book. The first one is about a quarter of the way through the book, while he's still with his family, and while the Germans haven't brutalized the Jews too much yet. And the second one is in the last 3/4, which is when he's surviving in attics and old broken down houses, trying to stay away from the Germans for 5 years. Because of the resulting perspective he gets from losing his family, he almost dies. He contemplates suicide so much, he set up in one of his earlier houses, he set up a noose, because he'd rather die than be captured by the Germans. And once, while he was in a burning building, he took some sleeping pills he found and opium. And he planned on actually dying from it, but he survived. So the new resulting perspective he got after his family, or he was torn from his family, is a very negative, dangerous one. And if he had his family with him there to help him through it, his perspective might be back to normal, but his perspective is the negative, no point in life, and it's that way for most of the book after he loses his family. The next character we will be looking at is the German soldier, whose name is actually Wilm Hosenfeld. Wilm Hosenfeld is actually a captain for the Germans. He was in the field for the First World War, but in the second one, they deemed him unfit and too old for being in the battlefield. So he works in a gym area where he keeps the soldiers fit, and he gives them some fun activities to do, which are like basic gym games. His diary is actually located in the back of the book, and he plays a major part in Vladislav's life, his survival and perspective. When you think a German soldier, when it was World War II, you don't think of survival or saving when it's involved with a Jew, but you think of more murder or killing. But Wilm actually was ashamed to be a German. He felt that, God should bring something bad on their next generation because of all the terrible things they have done, and they deserved it. Because of how ashamed he was at his whole generation and his brothers, he started to save many Jews. And Vladislav was just one of them. Vladislav was out of his attic one night where he's been hiding for a while. He was searching for some water, so he went to a nearby villa, and he heard somebody say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" He turned around and it was a German, and he just froze in his tracks and didn't say anything, but instead of raising his gun and shooting, the German just asked, "Hello, what's your name? What do you do for a living?" Vladislav said, "Well, I'm a pianist, I play piano." And he took him over to a piano that was in the villa, and he played. And Vladislav this whole time was like, "Why isn't he killing me? What is he doing?" Is this some sort of game where he's gonna kill me later, or I don't know. But Wilm was actually a good guy, and he was saving him because that area he was in a few minutes was going to be colonized by a German regiment, and he got him in an area of the attic. They went in the attic together and tried to find something that Vladislav could hide behind. Vladislav didn't see anything, but Wilm actually saw a little hole in the roof that was covered by a shadow from a nearby window. And it was just like a little manhole with like a sewer manhole, and it would go up to a small room above the attic. This is a very, very large quote in Vladislav's survival and his mental stability. Wilm states, "If you and I survived this inferno for 5 years," he replied, "it's obviously God's will for us to live." Spiltzman 181. This gives Vladislav hope, along with all the war news Wilm brings him. He sees the point, well, yeah, you're right, I have lived this long in this terrible place, and it must be God's will. He's wanting me to survive. Wilm also brings Vladislav news of the war's end, because when they meet, the war is dying down. Vladislav questions, where are the Soviet troops? They're already in Warsaw, in Praga, on the other side of the Vistula. Just hang on a few more weeks, the war will be over by spring at the latest. Just that small piece of information in a whole large network of military reports that he could have told them. It's very important, it's very momentous. For one, it's the war's end, but it also changes Vladislav's perspective yet again. While he's talking to Wilm, and while he sees him every once in a while, Wilm always makes a comment or says something that makes Vladislav's perspective more evolve into the positive one that he originally had when he was just a pianist doing what he loves. And the Inferno quote about how you and me have survived for 5 years, that really sets off Vladislav's non-suicidal thoughts, that he stops thinking about that. Well, he starts to, and then after the war will be over soon, that quote, that really, really sets off a spark, and Vladislav starts to look at life differently. And his perspective changes drastically from the one that was, oh, what's the point in life? There's no reason I'm alive. I shouldn't live. Into, well, the war will be over. I'll pick myself up and make a new life for myself. This is such, those two quotes that he says out of the many things he has said, they change Vladislav's perspective momentously. So not only does Wilm nourish Vladislav mentally, give him his mental stability back, he also brings him food. He brings him a military overcoat to keep him warm during the freezing Poland weather. So he's a very important character, and the amount of perspective changes, he lets Vladislav pass over the wall where he was at. He was stuck at a wall where it was, what's the point in life? I don't see it. He helped him get a ladder, climb over that wall, and get to the point where he has hope. He sees the light in life. He's thinking, well, I'll make a new life for myself. There's always good in the world. It's kind of like he starts to think more like Jehuda, like what Jehuda taught him to be optimistic. He just has had trouble with that because he's been so suppressed by all the negativity around him and all the German brutality. So Wilm actually results in the biggest perspective change in the book. He stops Vladislav's, not much so negativity, but depression. He lets him see the point in life. He guides him to the light in the world. He guides him to optimism that he hasn't felt in a long, long time. Next, we'll be looking at events that changed Vladislav's perspective.